Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the next session on Organic Chemistry Paper 2. In the Module 6, we are studying about aldehydes and ketones. In the Lecture 2, we will be studying about reactions of aldehydes and ketones. I am Dr. Balaji, currently working as Associate Professor in the School of Biotechnology at Jawaharlal Nehru University. This project is sponsored by DTH Swayam Prabha, MHRD, New Delhi. Let us look at the various topics that we will be studying in this particular session. We will be mainly focusing on reactions of aldehydes and ketones, that is the general reactivity of aldehydes and ketones we will study in the beginning. Then we will study about some reactions related to reduction of carbonyl compounds. We will then study about nucleophilic addition reactions. In this category, we will be studying about cyanohydrin formation, aldol condensation, Novinagel reaction, Cannizzaro reaction, and related reactions. In the case of electrophilic addition reactions, we will be studying about aldol reaction and alpha halogenation. So these are all the various topics that we will be covering in this particular session. Let us start with the reactivity of aldehydes and ketones. We will first study about the chemical reactivity of aldehydes and ketones. We know the carbonyl compound structure is a planar structure, and the carbon and the oxygen are in the sp2 hybridization. So due to which we say it is a trigonal planar structure. The main functionality of the carbonyl group to undergo reaction is the electronegativity difference that exists between the carbon and oxygen. So due to this electronegativity difference between this carbon and the oxygen, the carbonyl bond, that is C double bond O, is polarized, and the polarization is shown as like this. Oxygen is more electronegative than carbon, so the delta negative charge resides on the oxygen, and the carbon had developed a little bit positive charge. So we say this is the electrophilic end and this is the nucleophilic end of the carbonyl unit. So because of this polarization and the difference in the electronegativity between the carbon and the oxygen, this carbonyl group can undergo addition reaction. The first one is the nucleophilic addition. So we say the nucleophile is electron rich species. So that means this is electron rich, and between carbon and oxygen, the carbon is the electron deficient species. So the nucleophile can attack the carbonyl carbon, and this is the first step. So when the nucleophile attacks the carbonyl carbon, the C double bond O is shifted towards the oxygen. So the oxygen gets a negative charge, a formal negative charge is developed on the oxygen. And the next step, an electrophile is added to the system to make it hydroxyl, or if it is hydrogen, we call it as an hydroxyl, or any other electrophile can add to the oxygen. So the nucleophile is added here, the electrophile is added here. So this is what is called the nucleophilic addition of the carbonyl group. The reaction can also occur in the electrophilic addition fashion. In other words, the electrophile will add to the oxygen, which is electron rich. So the E plus adds to the oxygen in the first step. Then in the next step, the nucleophile will attack the formal carbonyl carbon to give the same nucleophile carbon oxygen electrophile formed species. So this way the carbonyl group can undergo both type of reaction, that is the nucleophilic addition and electrophilic addition can happen on the carbonyl group. Now the next question what we have is, how do we find it out whether the nucleophilic addition will occur first or the electrophilic addition will occur first? So this is a big question we have to answer. So to answer these questions, we can say under basic condition, the nucleophile first adds to the carbonyl carbon. In the second step, the electrophile, mostly the proton that is from the solvent, adds. So we can write like this. In the first step, under basic conditions, this is what you have to remember. If we are running the reaction under basic conditions, the nucleophile first adds to the carbonyl carbon as shown here, and in the second step the electrophile is added. In most of the cases the electrophile is a proton. So basically the solvent, the protic solvent is used in many of these reactions. So the proton from the solvent is added to the oxygen, electronegative oxygen. So we end up with the corresponding, if it is hydrogen, we end up with the alcohol. So this is how the nucleophilic addition takes place. And if the addition occurs under acidic conditions, that means H plus source is already present in the system. So the H plus basically adds to the carbonyl oxygen because the carbonyl oxygen is electronegative. So this can accept the proton very easily. And in the second step, the nucleophile adds to the carbonyl carbon because the carbonyl carbon becomes electron deficient as shown here. So in the first step the electrophile adds to the oxygen. In the second step the nucleophile adds to the carbonyl carbon. So we end up with the same product. So this way we can say whether the reaction is carried out under basic condition or under acidic conditions. We can predict what will be the first reaction. And let us look at the reactivity of carbonyl groups. We have a set of carbonyl groups shown here. First one is aldehyde, next one is ketone, this is ester, this is carboxylic acid, this is acid chloride, this is amide, and we have anhydride. So we have 7 carbonyl groups are shown here, and we will now see how they will react. In this particular module, we are focusing on the first two things, that is the aldehydes and ketones. So the aldehyde and ketone undergo nucleophilic addition reaction. And between aldehyde and ketone, the reactivity is aldehyde reacts faster in the nucleophilic addition compared to ketones. We will have to find out why this happens. What is the reason for the aldehyde to be better reactive than ketones? This is basically the steric effect. So how does the steric effect affect the nucleophilic addition reactions? If we carefully look at the carbonyl group, so if RCH, if this is the hydrogen, then that is what is called aldehyde, and if the H is another alkyl group, that is a ketone. So whenever the nucleophile attacks the carbonyl carbon, that is the electron deficient carbon, the HCO bond is actually 120 degree, and due to that even this RCH bond is also 120 degree. So the nucleophile can attack the carbonyl carbon very effectively. If it is a hydrogen, then the steric hindrance from this hydrogen is very small, so the nucleophile can very well or very easily attack this carbonyl carbon. If it is an alkyl group, there is another one alkyl group here, another alkyl group here. Due to the bulkiness of these two alkyl groups, the nucleophile attacking the carbonyl carbon is slower. It is not very fast because the approach is not very fast. Due to that, what happens is the reactivity is lower or slower. So that is the reason aldehyde reacts much faster compared to ketones in this particular addition reaction. Because in the next step, when after the reaction is over, what we end up is the corresponding nucleophilic addition product. This is a tetrahedral one. So the HCO bond here as shown here is 109 degree. So that means after the addition is over, there is a change in the hybridization. So the starting sp2 hybridization is changed to sp3 hybridization. So as we had shown, the nucleophile can attack from either top or bottom of the side. In either case, the hydrogen is very small, so the addition can very well or very effectively happen from this side. In the case of ketone, this is an alkyl, this is an alkyl, so the nucleophile attacking this carbonyl carbon is slower due to the steric effect. So this is how we can explain the higher reactivity of aldehydes compared to ketones in the nucleophilic addition reaction. So some of the things to recap is the hybridization changes from sp2 to sp3, and here it is a sp2 carbon, here it is a sp3 carbon. The bond angle also changes in this particular reaction when the nucleophilic addition takes place. We just now saw the importance of steric effect, which favors higher or better reactivity for aldehydes over ketone. Now let us look at how the electronic effect will affect the reactivity of aldehydes and ketones. If we look at the structure of aldehyde and ketone, the aldehyde has one alkyl group attached to the carbonyl carbon. Ketone has two alkyl groups attached to carbonyl carbon. So we already know alkyl groups are plus I effect groups, or they are inductively donate electrons. So we already know this. So in that particular case, what happens to the aldehyde is there is one alkyl group which is giving electron to the carbonyl carbon. In the case of ketones, there are two alkyl groups. They are giving electron inductively to the carbon. So what is the effect of this one? So because of the presence of this alkyl groups, they generally reduce the electrophilicity of the carbonyl carbon. So what do you mean by reducing the electrophilicity? Because this has to remain delta plus for the nucleophile to attack, because nucleophile is a negative species or electron rich species. So for the electron rich species to attack, this carbonyl carbon has to be more electron deficient. But if we have alkyl groups, they generally donate some electron to the carbonyl carbon, so that reduces the electrophilicity of this particular carbon. And there is one more thing what can happen is hyperconjugation is also possible. In other words, if there are more alkyl groups are present, they give more electrons. That is, this particular carbon is little bit electron rich compared to this aldehydic one. The aldehydic one has only one alkyl group, so the electron donation what it receives is much lower compared to the ketone carbonyl carbon, which receives electrons from two alkyl groups through inductive effect and hyperconjugation. So due to this difference in the electronic nature, the reactivity towards the nucleophilic addition is aldehydes are better reactive or higher reactive compared to ketones. And when we talk about the rest of the other carbonyl groups, they prefer nucleophilic substitution reactions and not nucleophilic addition reactions. So in the coming sessions, we will be studying about all these functional groups. So there we will study about nucleophilic substitution reactions. In this unit, we will be focusing mainly on nucleophilic addition reactions only. So let us start the first reaction, which is the reduction of aldehydes and ketones. So there are multiple methods are available. We will go through one by one. First one is the catalytic reduction. The aldehydes in the presence of a metal catalyst, especially the metal used is either platinum or nickel, can reduce the aldehyde to the primary alcohol. If we are reducing a ketone, we end up with a secondary alcohol. So these are all the standard reduction methods. Here the metal is used as a catalyst and hydrogen gas is used for the reduction. Another method is the hydride based reduction. This we had seen for the synthesis of alcohol also. We had seen this and we have elaborately studied about various hydride reducing agents. So in this particular case, aldehyde when treated with either sodium borohydride or lithium aluminum hydride can give the primary alcohol. If it is a ketone, then we will end up with a secondary alcohol. So hydride, either it is a hydride reducing agent or metal catalyst. If there is only an aldehyde or a ketone unit, we end up with a primary alcohol or secondary alcohol respectively. There is another set of reaction which we have to be very careful. So we have a double bond here and a carbonyl group here. So this is not an alpha beta unsaturated system, this is an isolated double bond. So when we have an isolated double bond and a carbonyl unit, lithium aluminum hydride selectively reduces only the corresponding carbonyl group and the double bond is not at all affected. But on the other hand, if you have an alpha beta unsaturated system, even the double bond is also reduced when we use lithium aluminum hydride. So the selectivity cannot be, the chemoselectivity cannot be maintained if it is an alpha beta unsaturated system. But if it is an isolated double bond, then it is possible to reduce only the specifically the carbonyl group. Whereas when we use hydrogen and a metal catalyst, especially nickel, both the alkene double bond and the carbonyl group both are reduced. So as shown here, the double bond and the carbonyl group both are reduced when we use metal based reduction, that is nickel, Raney nickel and hydrogen. So here we do not have any chemoselectivity when we use hydrogen and nickel, whereas when we use hydride based reducing agent, we have a chemoselective reduction of carbonyl groups if it is an isolated double bond. Then we will now look into the Clemmensen reduction. So in this particular case, a carbonyl compound is treated with zinc amalgam, zinc and mercury coupled, when we use in the presence of concentrated HCl, produces a reduced carbonyl compound. So the R prime can be either aldehyde, that means hydrogen, or alkyl group, it can be ketone. So the next one is the Wolff-Kushner reduction. In the Wolff-Kushner reduction, the carbonyl compound is treated with hydrazine. So this gives this intermediate which on treatment with KOH and heating produces the corresponding alkane. The carbonyl reduced substrate is formed in this particular case. This reaction actually does not affect the hydroxyl group or double bonds. So that means if a double bond or a hydroxy unit is present in the starting material, they are not affected by the Wolff-Kushner reduction, but there are some other groups which will be reduced. Say for example, if a carboxylic acid is there, or if a cyanide group is there, or if a Cl halogen is present, they are all affected by this particular reduction. So what does it mean by they are affected? Say for example, if we take the corresponding cyclohexyl chloroketone, this on treatment with hydrazine followed by the base treatment, the chlorine is completely lost. So of course the carbonyl group undergoes reduction also, but the chlorine is also dehalogenation also takes place in this particular case. So that means these groups, carboxylic acid, cyanide, chloride, cannot be used when we use the Wolff-Kushner reduction. So this is one of the limitation of the Wolff-Kushner reduction. Then the next step is reaction with the bisulfite. So in this particular case, a carbonyl group is treated with the bisulfite. So this gives a addition complex. So what we end up is a addition complex is formed as shown here, and this loses a HSO3 minus unit to give the corresponding derivative here. And what is the important thing with the addition derivative is these addition compounds are insoluble derivatives. So and they are also nice crystalline solids. So when a carbonyl compound is treated with the sodium bisulfite, we generally end up with insoluble derivatives of the carbonyl compound. So this can be used to derivatize carbonyl compounds from a mixture. The next one is the cyanohydrin formation or HCN addition. So in this particular case, the carbonyl group is treated with HCN in the presence of a base to give a cyanohydrin. The cyanide group is there, hydroxyl group is there. So put together this compound is called as the cyanohydrin. For this reaction to happen, the base is very important because generally the base is used as a catalyst in this reaction. If we have to look at the mechanism, how the reaction actually occurs, the base generally base is nucleophilic species, or it can also be called as because nucleophile and base both are electron rich species, so this is a electron deficient carbon. So this carbonyl carbon can be attacked by the base, or say for example the nucleophile, or whichever the case may be, and the oxygen is the carbonyl oxygen double bond is shifted towards the more electronegative oxygen. So if this happens, if this intermediate is formed, how the cyanide group can come and attack here, because this is a very difficult intermediate. The cyanide group cannot attack this particular intermediate, so no cyanohydrin can be formed from this species. So that means the mechanism of the base directly attacking the carbonyl carbon cannot lead to the cyanohydrin. So that means the mechanism what we proposed here is not the correct one which operates. So that means there should be a different mechanism by which the reaction actually works. So let us see what is that mechanism by which the reaction actually operates. So the base is generally used to abstract the proton from the HCN. So that is the reason it is used as a base and not a nucleophile. When we say nucleophile, then only this nucleophile can add to the carbonyl carbon. So that is the one you have to remember. Even though the base or the nucleophile both are electron rich species, the function of this B here is like a base and not a nucleophile. So that is the main thing you have to remember. In this particular cyanohydrin formation reaction, the base first abstracts a proton from the HCN. So that is the reason this reaction, HCN reaction, without the base cannot work effectively. So we need a base in the first step, and the first step the base removes the proton to give the BH and the CN minus. Now once the CN minus is formed, then the CN minus can now attack this carbonyl carbon. So the attack of this nucleophile. Now this is a nucleophile and this is no longer a base. So this nucleophile can attack the carbonyl carbon and this bond shift towards the oxygen. So we end up with the cyanide and the oxygen negative charge. So this is what is our final product, except that the hydrogen is missing in this intermediate. So the next step will be a treatment with the HCN again, because HCN is present in the reaction mixture. So this proton is abstracted by this O minus and we end up with the cyanohydrin, and this generates the cyanide ion again. So the cyanide ion is again produced in this reaction. So this can again undergo the same set of reactions to give the cyanohydrin as our final product. So in this particular case, the initial step is the abstraction of proton by the base. So that is what is the important step in this particular reaction. So the next one is reaction with the hydrazine. So when a carbonyl compound is treated with the hydrazine, we get a hydrazone. So how the reaction actually proceeds? This nitrogen has two protons and there is an oxygen. So in this particular case, this H2H plus O produces H2O. So water is formed as a byproduct in this reaction. And now this nitrogen and this carbon forms a double bond. So that is what is shown here. So this is how the hydrazone is formed. So for convenient, how we can do is like this oxygen and this two hydrogen can give the water molecule as shown here. So this is how the reaction actually proceeds to give the final hydrazone. So the next is reaction with the phenylhydrazine. So instead of a simple unsubstituted hydrazine, we have a phenyl group attached to the second nitrogen. So the reaction is one and very similar to the hydrazone formation. So when it is phenylhydrazine that is used, the product formed is called the phenylhydrazone. And when 2,4-dinitrophenylhydrazine as shown here is treated with the carbonyl compound, we end up with a phenyl 2,4-DNP derivative. They are generally orange or yellow color crystalline solids. So these are called the derivatives. Like a bisulfite complex, The reaction with phenylhydrazine or 2,4-DNP generally produces derivatives of carbonyl compound. So if in a mixture, if we have a carbonyl compound and say for example aldehyde or ketone and carboxylic acids or alcohols or halides, alkyl halides, if we have to separate the carbonyl compound, especially the ketone and aldehyde from the mixture, the treatment with the 2,4-DNP generally is employed that converts the aldehyde or ketone into the phenylhydrazine or hydrazone derivatives, and they are actually insoluble in the solvent system, and they are crystalline material, so they precipitate out of the system and we can actually isolate them. And in olden days people used to use the 2,4-DNP derivative for characterization of the corresponding aldehydes and ketones. They have a very sharp melting point and these compounds are also colored crystalline substances. The next one is reaction with semicarbazide. So in this particular case, the carbonyl compound is treated with NH2NHCONH2. So this is what is called the semicarbazide. So the treatment of semicarbazide with carbonyl compound can give different type of product. Let us say we have in the previous case we had seen NH2 reacts with the oxygen, especially this hydrogen and oxygen combined together to remove the water molecule. So in this molecule we have two NH2 units. So here we have one NH2 unit here, we have another NH2 unit here. So in that case we can say this can give two different products. Say for example, if the first NH2 reacts, we end up with this particular product, and if the second NH2 reacts, then we end up with this kind of product. So there are two different products possible in this reaction, and we will have to now find it out whether these two are actually formed or not. So before we can answer this question, we do need to look at this compound very carefully. So we have the one is basically a amine nitrogen. So this is a amine nitrogen. So that is basic or nucleophilic in nature. So this is one point we have to remember. And when we look at the second nitrogen, this is basically a amide nitrogen which is neutral. So when we are studying about nucleophilic substitution reactions or nucleophilic addition reactions, we are talking about a nucleophile. So nucleophile means it should be either basic or it should have lone pair of electrons. But this nitrogen has a free lone pair of electron. This nitrogen also has a free lone pair of electron. But unfortunately in the case of amide, what happens is this lone pair is in resonance with the carbonyl unit. So we have this kind of intermediate that is formed. So in other words, this amide nitrogen is no longer nucleophilic. So that means the lone pair is not on the nitrogen. So it is basically neutral in nature. So when it is neutral in nature, it cannot attack the electrophilic carbon. So in other words, this particular nitrogen, that is the amide nitrogen, cannot attack this electrophilic carbon. So this product is not at all formed. If you simply look at this is NH2, this is NH2, that's what we generally look. But unfortunately this NH2 is attached to another carbonyl unit which can form a resonance structure. So these are all some of the clues you have to look at when you are going to solve the problems. So always remember, don't look at the functional group as in isolation. Also look at the neighboring groups which are present, and you also need to know whether they can enter into conjugation or resonance. So if those kind of things are possible, then obviously you have to be very careful in deducing the reaction products. The next one is reaction with ammonia and its derivatives. The first one is ammonia itself. When carbonyl compound is treated with ammonia directly, we end up with this kind of amino alcohols, we can say. But these amino alcohols are highly unstable, so they generally polymerize to give some cyclic derivatives as shown here. And that is the reason these compounds, these amino alcohols, are not generally isolated. They are quite unstable species. But when we treat with the primary amine, so a carbonyl carbon is treated with the primary amine, we end up with the imine. So here there is a double bond between carbon and nitrogen. So this is what you have to remember. If it is an imine, we have a double bond between carbon and nitrogen. So like the previous case, we can also assume like how the reaction proceeds. Even it's a crude way of remembering, but not the actual one. So you can actually say, look at like this. So there is a hydrogen here, there is an oxygen here. So these two combine together to give a imine, that is C double bond N is formed in this case. This is not the actual mechanism, so don't remember like this, but for your easy understanding, I am just showing that this hydrogen and this oxygen can be removed to form the C double bond N. So this is how the imine is formed. Now let us look at the secondary amine. In the case of secondary amine, there is only one hydrogen on the nitrogen. So that means in this particular case, we cannot use the same analogy like this H2 and this O cannot be formed. So in other words, we cannot say this amine will not undergo reaction with the carbonyl compounds, but we do have a product. So let us see how this reaction actually proceeds. So in the first step, this nitrogen is a nucleophilic one. So this nitrogen is a nucleophilic nitrogen. So the lone pair is attacking the carbonyl carbon, and at that time the double bond C double bond O oxygen electrons are shifted towards the oxygen. So this leads to a intermediate of this as shown here. So this intermediate, basically what happens now is the proton shift happens. This proton is shifted from this nitrogen to this oxygen. So when it goes out, these two electrons are given to the nitrogen, and this oxygen is already electron rich. So this proton can easily be picked up by this negative oxygen. So that gives the corresponding derivative. So this intermediate is formed. This is quite unstable intermediate. Unlike the previous case where we have two hydrogen here, amino, if when ammonia was added directly, the carbon has both hydroxyl and the amine unit both on the same carbon, so they underwent cyclization. But in this particular case, we do not have hydrogen, we have only alkyl groups. So this is a little bit comparatively stable compound. It does not undergo polymerization as what we have seen with the reaction with ammonia, but this does undergo different type of reaction. Let us see what is that different type of reaction. So in the next step, the oxygen is having electron lone pair of electrons. So this lone pair of electrons can now pick up or now bond with the hydrogen. So this leads to a water molecule that is being formed. Hydronium ion is formed on this particular carbon. As you already know, if there is a OH which is a very poor leaving group can be converted to a better leaving group by abstraction of a proton. So this is what happens here. So in this particular case, the water is actually taken here. So this bond is now shifted towards this oxygen. So when the bond is shifted towards the water molecule, so we end up with a carbocation. Basically a carbocation is formed in this as an intermediate. So this carbocation it's unstable. So a proton is basically lost from the neighboring carbon. So this is what is very essential. You have to remember in this particular case, a proton from the neighboring carbon, either this proton or this proton, because we have two protons are there. Any one of the proton can be given. That means the electrons between CH bond is now shared between carbon and the electrophilic carbon, that is the carbocation. So this leads to the formation of a double bond between C2 carbons, and this type of intermediates are called ene amines. So what do you mean by ene amine? We have a double bond, that is a ene alkene, and we have a secondary amine. So both combined together in the same molecule, we call them as a ene amine. So this is an important reaction or important product that is formed, and this reaction happens with the help of mainly for secondary amines. So when a secondary amine is treated with a carbonyl compound, what is very essential for this reaction is there should be alpha hydrogen on the carbonyl compound. So there should be some alpha hydrogen present in the carbon which is adjacent to the carbonyl group, then only this reaction proceeds. Otherwise this reaction does not proceed. So the next one is the hydroxylamine reaction. In the hydroxylamine reaction, again we can simply assume that this oxygen and this hydrogen NH2 can combine together to form a oxime. So these products are called oximes. Now this is called syn. We are starting with an aldehyde, so this is called aldoxime. So this is a syn aldoxime and this is anti-aldoxime. So there is some controversy you will be encountering here. According to the CIP rules or the priority rules, what we say is in this nitrogen there is only one hydroxyl group. The other side we have a lone pair of electron. In this carbon we have an alkyl group, we have a hydrogen. So that means priority wise, if you look at, alkyl is having high priority, hydrogen is having low priority. And in this one we have the high priority hydroxyl is present here low priority electron is there. So that means the hydroxyl and the alkyl groups are in the anti-orientation or in the trans condition. Then why do we call this compound as a syn aldoxime and not anti-aldoxime? So this confusion you will get. The reason why this is called syn aldoxime is very simple. Here we are naming this compound as aldoxime. So the aldehyde has a proton. So there is a proton, a hydrogen here. So this hydrogen and oxime, the oxime has the hydroxyl unit. So this hydrogen and the hydroxyl unit, if they are on the same side, then this compound is actually named as syn aldoxime. So the name aldoxime basically refers to these two groups, the hydrogen and the hydroxyl group, whether they are in the syn orientation, that means they are on the same side. In this particular case, the hydrogen is on the one side and the hydroxyl is on the other side. So this is called anti-aldoxime. So you can remember like this, whenever we say syn or anti-aldoxime, we are only referring to the hydrogen and the hydroxyl group, whether they are on the same side or whether they are on the opposite side. So based on that, we call that as a, this is on the opposite side, so we call this as an anti-aldoxime. They are on the same side, this is called syn aldoxime. So this way you can easily remember the name. The next one is the Grignard reaction, which we have already seen in many cases. So an aldehyde or a ketone reacts with the alkyl magnesium halide. If an aldehyde reacts, we end up with a secondary alcohol. If a ketone reacts, we end up with a tertiary alcohol. So this reaction you are already familiar with. The next important reaction is the alpha halogenation reaction. So when a carbonyl compound is treated with the bromine in the presence of either acidic conditions or basic conditions, we end up with a corresponding halo, alpha halo substituted derivative as shown here. And if we take acetone, the simplest example acetone is taken here, we have a 3 hydrogens are present on this particular carbon, that is the adjacent carbon. And when we treat the reaction with the base, strong base, basically sodium hydroxide is used in these reactions. The OH minus abstracts a proton because in this reaction this OH minus acts like a base. So remember, this is a base. So this acts like a base. So this abstracts a proton, and once it abstracts a proton, this bond is now shifted between the electron deficient carbon and this particular carbon. So this alkyl bond, this carbon oxygen bond is shifted towards the electronegative oxygen. So this electron flow you are already familiar with. So this leads to the negative charge now comes between this carbon and this oxygen bond, and now this double bond is electron rich, so this can attack this bromine, and this bond now shifted towards the bromine. So like that the electron flow happens, which leads to a alpha substitution as shown here. So CH2Br is shown here. Same here in this particular carbon we have a CH2Br. So this is how the first substitution happens, and since we have two more hydrogens, so the reaction can be continued two more times to produce the all three substituted CBr3 derivative is formed. So the alpha halogenation generally end up with the complete substitution of all the alpha protons. And if we are using iodine, in this particular case we have used the bromine derivative. So instead of the bromine derivative, if we are using an iodo derivative, so this reaction actually ends up producing a iodoform. So this iodoform is generally yellow in color. It is formed as a precipitate. So this haloform reaction can be used to find out whether the compound has a methyl group present in it. So this is one of the confirmatory tests for the finding out of a methyl group present in an aldehyde or a ketone. The next reaction is the aldol condensation. So in this particular case, an aldehyde which has to have a alpha hydrogen. So remember that this is the most important one. The aldehydes containing alpha hydrogen, when treated with a base, gives a enolate anion. So in the previous case also we had seen, in the presence of a base we have a en and we have a ate, because this is a hydroxyl's 8 anion, this is a en, so both together this compound is called enolate anion. So this enolate anion can remain in the resonance structure as shown here. The oxygen is now having the double bond, whereas we have a anion on this particular carbon. So we have a negative charge carbanion here. We have a electropositive because this is basically a delta plus charge. And this carbonyl carbon is attacked by the anion, and this oxygen, the C double bond O is shifted towards the oxygen to give this particular intermediate as shown here. So we have a O minus. So this unit is the CH3CHO unit. So this unit is basically from obtained from this one, and the other unit is written here. So this CH2 carbon is here, and the other unit is formed from the enolate anion. So this is the enolate anion part, and this is our starting material, which is the acetaldehyde part. So this, in the next step, the negative charge abstracts a proton from the solvent molecule, because this reaction is generally run in aqueous condition. So aqueous condition has water molecules. So that means the proton from the solvent is abstracted by this O minus, which gives the hydroxy carbonyl compound is formed. And this compound is generally called as aldol, because we have an aldehyde unit in this case, and we have an alcohol unit, that is a hydroxy unit. So when these two things are present in the same compound, these are called aldol products. So that is how the name aldol condensation came. And this can actually undergo elimination. If heated, this can produce so this can eliminate water to produce the corresponding alkene and the carbonyl compound, that is nothing but the alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl compound can be produced in this particular case if we heat this reaction. So this aldol condensation is a very good method for the preparation of alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl compounds. The next one is the Neuvenigal reaction. So in this particular case, again a carbonyl compound is treated with active methylene compound, because here what we have is that is a electron withdrawing group generally, and this proton is called active methylene hydrogens, because this electron withdrawing group makes this proton highly acidic. So by treatment with the milder base, this proton can be easily abstracted to give the corresponding alkene derivative. So we will see how the reaction actually proceeds. And if the Z group is a ester group, then on hydrolysis this loses one of the carboxylic unit as a carbon dioxide, and we end up with the corresponding alpha beta unsaturated carboxylic acid is formed in this particular case. So basically how the reaction proceeds is, you can assume like this hydrogen and this oxygen both are gone. So we have a carbon here, we have another carbon here, so there is a double bond formed between these two carbon. That is what it is shown here as like this. So the Z group are generally electron withdrawing groups, which is aldehyde, esters, cyanides, nitro, or ketones. Like that we have many electron withdrawing group can be employed in this particular reaction. So how do we know this actual reaction proceeds? We will now look at the reaction mechanism. So in the first step, the base abstracts a proton. So in the first step, anion is formed on this particular carbon. So this is the group which is containing the two electron withdrawing groups. So when we have a negative charge on this carbon, this is the nucleophilic unit now, and this is the electrophilic carbon. So this minus charge can come and attack this the carbonyl carbon. That leads to this particular intermediate, and this intermediate on treatment with the BH, the base whatever is formed here, gives away the proton to this minus charge. So we get a hydroxide derivative with our electron withdrawing groups attached to this one. This on heating loses water molecule. So there is a OH here, there is a H here. So this H and this OH both go out to produce the corresponding corresponding alkene as the final product. The next one is the Cannizzaro reaction. So in this case, formaldehyde, two molecules of formaldehyde when treated with sodium 50% sodium hydroxide produces a methanol and sodium formate. So two units are formed. So we have a starting aldehyde which produces an alcohol and an acid. So one part of the aldehyde is reduced to an alcohol and another part of the aldehyde is oxidized to an acid. So this is how the reaction actually proceeds. So there are some requirements for this reaction. In the aldol condensation and other reactions what we have seen earlier, they have to have alpha hydrogen for the reaction to occur. But in this particular case, for the Cannizzaro reaction, the material should not have an alpha hydrogen. Then only this reaction actually proceeds. And this is basically the self-oxidation and the self-reduction of the starting material, which is the aldehyde. Before we study about the reaction mechanism of the Cannizzaro reaction, let us look at what are the characteristics of this particular reaction. So this is basically a redox disproportionation reaction of a non-enolizable aldehydes to give carboxylic acid and alcohol. This reaction happens in the presence of a concentrated base, and this reaction also involves internal hydride transfer. So these are all the two things we have to remember before we start or analyze the reaction mechanism. Let us look at the reaction mechanism. So we know the carbonyl carbon is always polarized towards the oxygen because oxygen is more electronegative. So this C double bond O is always polarized towards oxygen. That's the reason this carbonyl carbon is always electrophilic in nature. Now the nucleophile which is present in the medium, that is a strong base, adds to the electrophilic carbon. So we end up with a tetrahedral intermediate as shown here. So this OH is the one which is added here, and the O gets the minus charge. So this is a tetrahedral intermediate formed in this particular initial step. So under extremely strong basic conditions, what happens is there is one more step happens in which the excess of the base which remains in the system abstracts the proton from the hydroxyl group. So this proton is abstracted by the hydroxide anion present, and during that process the OH bond is given towards the electronegative oxygen. So with the loss of water molecule, we end up with a doubly charged anion. So there are two intermediates involved in this particular reaction. One is a tetrahedral intermediate having one negative charge or a singly charged anion, and there is also another species which is a doubly charged anion. So these two species exist in the extremely or the strongly basic conditions. This is the main species. Under normal basic conditions, this intermediate is the main species which is formed. So once this particular intermediate is formed, what happens is this charge reversal leads to a loss of hydride and hydride ion. So this hydride ion now adds to the carbonyl carbon, because we already know this is a electrophilic end. So the hydride with its bonded electrons attacks this particular carbonyl carbon, leading to a intermediate as shown here, because one molecule of the aldehyde and another molecule is the first base added intermediate. So there are two molecules are actually involved in this particular reaction. So the second molecule takes this hydride ion and becomes the our future alcohol, and this first molecule which where the as OH minus was added in the first step becomes the carboxylic acid. So there is a internal transfer of hydrogen takes place in this particular step. So the oxide anion abstracts a proton from the carboxylic acid to give the carboxylate anion, and the alcohol is formed. If we look at the doubly charged anion, so the doubly charged anion also undergoes a reaction very similar to the tetrahedral intermediate with the singly charged anion. So in this case again the hydride is transferred to the second molecule of the aldehyde, and during that process the negative charge is shifted from the oxygen carbon bond. This is shifted between the carbon oxygen bond to give a C double bond O, and since we already have another negative charge oxygen here, so we end up with a carboxylate anion, and the other part of the molecule, the second part where the hydride ion transferred, has a negative charge. This is the alkoxide anion which is present. This abstracts a proton from the solvent molecule to give the corresponding alcohol unit, and the carboxylate anion is formed. So in both the cases carboxylate anion is formed. Now you will be wondering why the alkoxide doesn't exist and why the carboxylate exists in the medium. So this is a good question you have to answer. Now the reason being, the free acid cannot exist in the strongly alkaline medium. That is the reason the acid loses a proton to the oxide anion to give the alcohol and the carboxylate anion. If we look at the acidity of the carboxylate anion and the alkoxide, then you will already find it out. The acid is very prone to donate proton, and the alkoxide is very willing to accept the proton. So that is the reason the alkoxide gets converted to the alcohol, whereas the carboxylic acid is getting converted to carboxylate anion. So this is the reason this particular reaction produces an alcohol and the carboxylate anion. Let us compare the two nucleophilic addition reactions. One is the aldol reaction, another one is a Cannizzaro reaction. So in this case, both the reactions are catalyzed by either acid or base. So that means we know acid catalyzed and base catalyzed versions of aldol reaction and Cannizzaro reactions are known. And for the aldol reaction to occur, we need a alpha hydrogen. So the requirement is an alpha hydrogen is required for a aldol reaction to undergo. Whereas for the Cannizzaro reaction, there should be no alpha hydrogen. So this is the major difference between aldol reaction and the Cannizzaro reaction. And aldol reactions are generally faster compared to Cannizzaro reaction because Cannizzaro reaction is a very slow reaction. And in the case of aldol reaction, there is a C-C bond is formed, carbon-carbon bond is formed, whereas in the case of Cannizzaro reaction, one aldehyde molecule is oxidized and another molecule is reduced. And the aldol reaction involves enolate under basic conditions and enol under acidic conditions. And in the case of Cannizzaro reaction, basically it involves internal hydride transfer. So this is the major difference between aldol reaction and Cannizzaro reaction. So Cannizzaro reaction is one of the important reaction where hydride transfer happens. There are other couple of organic reactions where the hydride transfer happens. One is the metal hydride reductions like sodium borohydride or lithium aluminum hydride reduction, and the second one is MPV reduction. So these are all the other reactions where hydride is involved. Then in the case of aldol reaction, the final product on heating gives the alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl compound, whereas in the case of Cannizzaro reaction we get an alcohol and the carboxylate salt. So these are all the comparison between aldol reaction and Cannizzaro reaction. The next one is benzylic acid rearrangement. So in this particular case also we have a base catalyzed reaction. So far all the reactions what we have studied are basically initiated by the base. So the product what we get is a hydroxy carboxylic acid. So a dicarbonyl compound is converted into a hydroxy carboxylic acid, especially this is in the alpha position. So this is a alpha hydroxy carboxylic acid is formed. And when we look at the mechanism, the initial step is the hydroxide is present in the medium. So obviously you know the hydroxide is going to attack one of the carbonyl carbon because it is electron deficient, and the oxygen pulls the electron towards itself. So we have this particular intermediate that is formed in this reaction, and the negative charge comes between the carbon. And the most crucial part when we say this is a rearrangement, the most crucial part is the migration of one of the groups attached to the carbon, that is the phenyl group moves with its own 2 electrons to this carbonyl carbon, because this is again electron deficient. So when it is electron deficient carbon, unless this phenyl group moves its own electron, it cannot come and attack this carbonyl carbon. So this phenyl group moves with its electron, bonded electron, and obviously the next step will be the oxygen. This carbonyl oxygen double bond is polarized towards the oxygen, or the oxygen pulls the electron towards itself. So we end up with a rearranged product. So that is why this reaction is called the rearrangement. So in this particular case, one of the group attached to the carbonyl carbon is shifted from one part to the other part of the molecule. So we end up with a carboxylic acid, and we have a oxide anion. So this can undergo resonance to give this particular intermediate. So what happens is basically this double bond electron comes here, this oxygen, the proton is subtracted by this one, and this hydrogen is basically shifted to this oxygen. So addition of a proton in the final step produces the corresponding carboxylic acid. The next one is a Michael addition. So in this particular case, an alpha beta unsaturated carbonyl is treated with the active methylene compound. Z groups are generally electron withdrawing groups. So in the presence of a base, this reaction adds to, this is called 1,4 addition. So basically the carbon number 1, 2, 3, 4, like that we call this one as a 1,4 addition, and this is also called as a Michael addition reaction. So here the bond is formed between this active methylene compound bonds to this particular carbon. So here we have a bond between carbon-carbon. The next one is electrophilic reaction. So far we have studied about all nucleophilic reactions where the nucleophile or the hydroxide base is used as the initial starting point. Now we will be studying about electrophilic reactions. So in the case of electrophilic reactions, as we had seen earlier, the oxygen is going to have the negative charge. The delta negative charge remains on the oxygen, and the electrophile will now first come and add to the oxygen. And if we have an aldehyde or ketone, the R groups are electron donating, so these are actually pushed towards the oxygen much more effectively. So if we have a protic solvent, water with in acidic conditions, the first step is the addition of this oxygen lone pair to the proton to form this kind of intermediate. The oxonium intermediate is formed, and this is being attacked by the water molecule because oxygen has a lone pair here. This is electrophilic carbon. So this oxygen lone pair attacks this carbon, and the carbonyl oxygen double bond is now shifted to the oxygen because oxygen is electron deficient now because it is having plus charge. So these two bonded electrons are shifted to the oxygen now. We end up with a diol. This is a gem diol. These are generally highly unstable species. The next one is the acid catalyzed aldol reaction. We had seen the base catalyzed aldol reaction. Now we will look at the acid catalyzed aldol reaction. So here the first step is the addition of the electrophilic species, that is the proton is added to the carbonyl oxygen because we know this is electron rich and this is electron poor. So the lone pair are bonded towards the hydrogen, and we end up with this particular intermediate. And this intermediate, when the bonds are shifted, the bonded electrons are shifted to the oxygen, we get a carbocation on this particular carbon. So we end up with a carbocation. So this carbocation can now lose a proton to give this particular intermediate. So this intermediate is called, we have a double bond ene and we have a OH. So this is what is called enol. So what actually happens from here to here is nothing but a ketoenol tautomerism. So this is the ketone part and this is the enol part. So the ketoenol tautomerism happens as the first step in the acid catalyzed aldol condensation, or in the presence of acid, the ketoenol tautomerism occurs very effectively. So we end up with this particular enol. Now this enol will now react with this particular carbocation. So because we have a electron rich double bond, so the carbocation is electron deficient. So this electron rich the electron rich pi bond is added to the corresponding carbocation. So we end up with this particular intermediate. Because these electrons are shifted, one of the carbon becomes the electron deficient or becomes a carbocation. So that means this particular carbon is added to this carbon and this carbon becomes a electron deficient or carbocation. So once this intermediate is formed, oxygen is having a lone pair. So oxygen gives the lone pair electron between carbon and oxygen. So we end up with this particular intermediate. The oxonium ion is formed. So this oxonium ion loses the proton because between oxygen and hydrogen, oxygen is more electronegative. So that simply pulls the electron, the bonded electron towards itself, and the proton is left out as a H plus ion. So by the loss of H plus ion, we end up with this one. So what is the first step? In the initial step, it is the addition of the H plus, and in the last step, it is the loss of the H plus. So this is basically called as a acid catalyzed reaction, because whatever is consumed in the first step is liberated in the last step. So that is why this is a catalytic reaction, and this is initiated by the proton. So this is what is called the acid catalyzed aldol condensation. So in the product, what we have is, we have a carbonyl group, we have an alcohol. So this reaction is called the aldol condensation. Although we started off with a ketone, this reaction is also applicable for when this group is hydrogen also, this reaction works. So that is why this is called the aldol reaction. Now we will look at the acid catalyzed halogenation reaction, because earlier we had seen the halogenation using nucleophilic bases. Here we will see how the reaction proceeds under acidic conditions. So here again we have a protic solvent with acid. So H plus ions are present in this large excess. So the lone pair of electron from the oxygen now bonds to the hydrogen. So we end up with this oxonium ion intermediate, and this solvent water molecule which is present has lone pair. So they abstract this particular proton, and this carbon hydrogen bond is now shifted between carbon and this carbon. So the oxygen's this double bond is now shifted to the electropositive oxygen. So we end up with this particular enol like derivative. So this is a enol derivative. We have a double bond ene, we have an OH alcohol. So this is very similar to the aldol condensation. This is also the first step for the halogenation reaction as well, and this is a very slow step, or this is the rate determining step. Now in the aldol condensation, this ene actually reacts with the corresponding carbocation which was present in the previous case, whereas in this particular reaction we have a halogen X2 is present. So this alkene now will add to the X. So here the bond, the electron flow is shown as shown here. So this X adds to this particular carbon, the terminal carbon, the X is added, and in the next step, which is a fast step, the X minus abstracts a proton from this positive charge oxygen, and we end up with the corresponding carbonyl derivative. The carbonyl carbon regains its octet, and we have a halogen added to the alpha position. So this is how the acid catalyzed halogenation reaction occurs. So in the summary, let us recap what we have studied so far. We have studied about the general reactivity of aldehydes and ketones, and how the various type of reactions can occur on aldehydes and ketones. Then we also studied about the reduction methods, basically hydrate reduction and metal based reductions we have studied. We have studied about nucleophilic addition reactions, mainly the cyanohydrin formation, aldol condensation, Knoevenagel reaction, and Cannizzaro reaction. The presence and the absence of alpha hydrogens, how they affect the product formation, we have studied, and the structural activity also we have studied. Why aldehydes are better reactive compared to ketone, that also we have seen. And we also have studied about electrophilic addition reactions, mainly the acid catalyzed aldol condensation and the acid catalyzed alpha halogenation reactions. So with this we conclude this particular session. Thank you.